Hello and welcome to the Driving Maul show here on New Zealand Sport Radio. I've just realised one of my screens has disappeared, but we'll hopefully get that back. And joining me this evening is Stephen Harris. How are you doing, sir?
Very good, thank you, Paul. Always a real privilege and a pleasure to be on the Driving Maul.
And also joining us, we've got Boa arriving, just a little bit late, but not too late.
On the nick of time, I believe. Hope everyone is well. Hope everyone is safe. Auckland, level 3. Steve, nice to see you. And Paul, my highlight of the week, being on this show. So let's rock and roll.
Well, 3 hours and 58 minutes, I think it is, until Auckland makes it to level 3. So, folks, I'm pretty sure there's probably already a couple of kilometres queue for every single KFC and McDonald's in Auckland. As everyone waits for that 11:59 opening time. Yes, I can. Geez, good luck to the police this evening. Look, when you've got the gangs, they're not smuggling drugs into Auckland. They've been smuggling KFC into Auckland by the bucket load. So, please, folks, no McDonald's rage or KFC rage this evening. We don't need that. Just carefully wait your turn, and you'll get your food. Or just wait till tomorrow. Or order Uber Eats. I mean, look, there's all sorts of ways of doing it. Anyway, not sure where we're going with that. But good evening, Simon, in the live chat. And don't forget, folks, the Driving Maul shows here at 8 p.m. every single Tuesday, going live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. And you can also listen to us wherever you get your podcatchers or your podcasts, as well as on the recording. Tonight, some of the stuff we'll have a look back and look forward around the Rugby Championship. There's been some Women's Rugby World Cup qualifying. The Premiership is back. We've got some NPC and Farah Palmer Cup news. And the Fijian Drua have announced their first 5 players. Now, I had a very quick chat with Shane about this on the 5 p.m. Lockdown Beers and Rugby chat. And folks, at 5 p.m., we're just covering off basically daily news, having a bit of casual chat every day. So during lockdowns, so do join us for that as well. I would like to get your guys' take on the first 5 players that Fiji and Drua have selected, and also the fact that everyone's going to get an official number, a bit like the All Blacks have an official number. Do you like that little touch from Fiji, Bar?
Yeah, absolutely. And look, the real cool thing is that I honestly thought with this whole Fiji and Drua, it'll be a bit of a sort of piecemeal thing, and they won't have necessarily the level of organization behind it. But it seems that they've got pieces of the puzzle ready. Obviously, they've named the first 5 signings, and with a team like this, the marketing's got to be right. So this is a great sign of things to come. And also, I looked at some of the sponsors on their backdrop. Looks like they've got almost everything in place. So really exciting times, long overdue, super happy. And I know quite a few players, who I've coached at age grade level, really excited about this. And this would be the perfect shadow opportunity for the Fijian national team as well. And the level of exposure these guys are going to get. So I think it's great. Very excited. I can't wait. I just hope that they once they get on the field, they start throwing that ball around, and they can really justify their presence in this Super Rugby competition.
Stephen, your thoughts on the Fijian Drua?
We've already had a bite-sized sample of the Drua having played in the Australian NPC, and they took out a title, and from what I can recall, they played some absolutely brilliant rugby. And if you want to talk about box office, Onusi Ratavai, wow, he is total box office, and that's after a couple of games only in the 221 Bunnings NPC. And boy, he's the sort of player you would actually pay to go along and watch.
Well, I was going to run through the 5 of them, see what you guys know about them. So Fijian Drua number 1. This person will always be number 1. Napalinai Bolaka. And please, if I've butchered it too much, please do correct me. but Tokyo Olympics gold medalist, a sevens player. Yeah, a good start there.
Absolutely, I think Bolaka he's a sevens exponent. What this guy can do is he can switch direction and step at extreme speed. So that's a real skill in itself and real entertainer. So what I'm liking about all this is the ability of most of these players to kind of commingle and mix and match from the sevens to the 15. So we will see a lot of players. As I said once upon a time on one of our shows, when the former All Black Brad Johnson was coaching Fiji, he came out and said, "I have 14 wingers and one halfback." So this is evidence that this is the sort of team we're going to go with. And of course, Bolaka had a amazing Olympic sevens as well as his build-ups. As you can see, he's got 19 tries in 35 matches. So he knows his way around the field as well as scoring tries.
Stephen, then number two, whilst as you say, we've got a back there. Also, a hooker now, Tavita Ikanabe is number two, and flying Fijian international, got a cap, only 2 years old, but yeah, looks like he's come through the levels there.
Yeah, and as you can see, provincial team is Suva, so. It's great that they're actually going local, which also basically means that, the locals in Fiji can actually relate to these players.
Yep, absolutely. And he also played for the Fijian Drua when they were part of the NPC. We've then got Ratavai, who was the player you were talking about, Stephen, who's played for the Bay of Plenty this year, scored 2 tries at the weekend. Yeah, he's an excitement machine, isn't he?
Oh, he is. I suppose the real surprising thing is they're 29 years old. You ask yourself, where's he been, for crying out loud, But on saying that, he can do a lot of things that most wingers can't do. Very, very stockily built and strong through the hips.
And I guess that is, folks, what this Fijian Drua is going to really bring, is that these guys, he's 29 years old. He's obviously been playing professional rugby at a professional level for a number of years, but probably not getting paid for it. And finally, he gets his chance. But it's people like him who will get a better chance. Provincial team, Namosi. I'll be honest, I have no idea where that is within Fiji. But this is the kind of guy that the Fijian Drua are really going to give a much better opportunity to. Because I say he was cracking at the weekend for Bay of Plenty against Hawke's Bay, admittedly in a losing side. Another older person then, Nemani Ngoza, 33, back rower there, 18 caps for the Flying Fijians. And you just kind of think he's been with the Flying Fijians since 2012, and he's only got 18 caps. You're like, wow. This shows you how little the Fijian side play, which is a big thing. But again, the first two young, the second two a bit older. Good to see some experience in this team as well.
No question. Nagusa, he's a real tradesman, and he's a warhorse. He's been around, and particularly given, I think he's one of the guys. He's probably played close to 500 sevens games in tournaments which are played in Fiji. Every year in Fiji, there's probably about a good 30 to 40 top level interprovincial and interclub sort of with the involvement of the armed forces sevens tournaments and competitions. So this guy, he's certainly earned his stripes. One thing I like about this particular Fijian side is this is, I think, the missing link when it comes to Fiji converting some of this experience and form which they've grown, homegrown in the islands itself, into the 15s game, because we see a lot of sevens tournaments within Fiji, and that's where they pool all their talent, and that's how they bring all that talent into the international circuits, particularly the World Rugby WR or the IRB sevens circuit. So this is going to be this opportunity where, particularly with some of these older guys, where the experience comes in, they'll probably play a key role in mentoring some of the younger guys. Give this team 4 to 8 years we're gonna see some significant talent coming through, as well as Fiji making a mark on the 15 scale.
Yeah, that's probably again. Is then hopefully they do get that 4 years and 4 proper years, unlike the Sunwolves who kept changing every year. And then the final player, another youngster at halfback, Simone Kuravoli. There is the final player again, another person who's been part of the Sevens squad in there, but has also played some 15s for the Flying Fijians as well. So another one who has, played with the Sevens and also played with the Flying Fijians. All 5 of them look like they're local boys, which is good to see, as Stephen was saying. So there you go, folks. That's the first 5. Also, folks, just putting a link in the live chat for my update on the Fijian Drua from about 2 weeks ago now, which looks at goes through their press conference they gave. That was an hour long, folks. If you want to go through that yourself, you can do. Mine's a much more slimmed down 9-minute update, I think it is, where I talk about where they're going to play, the coaching staff, the playing squad, how it's going to be made up, etc. So that link is in the live chat there for you, folks. It is for supporters of New Zealand Sport Radio only, but you can become a supporter for as little as $1 a month. So seriously, it's the cheapest paywall you have around, and you also help me actually be able to, maybe, you never know, actually afford my petrol to go to football games. We go to rugby games as well.
Paul, I was going to say Simeone's obviously former Fiji under-20s, but he's a player who can play both halfback and first 5, so very versatile. He's also played 1 test.
I would suggest
pretty much
2 tests.
Pretty much being the undecided Frank Lamani, the first choice halfback. One other thing I have to say, gentlemen, is this team, I think, particularly with the locals in Fiji, the island folk, this will be a team which they can really relate to, because almost the entire squad is recruited within the homegrown turf or homegrown patch. And this will be one of the unique features of this side, because if you look at most of the other Super Rugby sides, there's a lot of draft players coming in as well. So from creating that identity and having a strong home support and being for the locals to be able to connect with this team, this is a fantastic opportunity. And I think, we're going to see some fireworks. This team is going to really shake some of the foundations up, particularly in this debut season. And let's just see where this adventure takes them.
Yeah, look, there's a couple of things that I talk about in that preview thing. One is that they're not going to be able to play in Fiji year 1, unfortunately. So that's not going to be possible. And secondly, one of the things that we've mentioned a couple of times now is that due to this COVID lockdown we've had recently, and that we lost 3 weekends to that through the NPC, means that the NPC is going to run late into late November, and that means that normally the Super Rugby franchises would gather at the beginning of December to get some work in before Christmas and New Year, and have a break and then come back again. It looks like there is a potential that the New Zealand Super Rugby franchises, and by extension Moana Pacifica, won't be able to gather pre-Christmas, or at least not their players who are part of NPC. So that's going to hurt Moana Pacifica in particular with their preparation pre-season, because obviously they haven't met before, whereas most of the other squads will have some familiarity. But it looks and it sounds like the Fijian Drua will be gathering earlier than that, and I go through that in the update. But so I do think that with that extended preseason that they're going to have, they really could hit the ground running, and as you say, Boa, surprise some people early doors.
And one thing I have to say, sorry, with Moana Pacifica, look, with these sides, predominantly the Pacific Island players. Yeah, look, we kind of overcoach too much of the structures. You just gotta let these guys play. So it's a bit of a double-edged sword because you don't want to be too loose, but at the same time you want to be too structured. So it'll be interesting to see how everyone adapts, and I hope more so for Moana Pacifica's sake that they just turn up and throw the ball around and play some entertaining rugby, because if they do that, boy, it's going to give us some fireworks.
It is. We have heard off the on the quiet or off the record some players who have been signed for Moana Pacifica already. So, folks, so don't worry about if you've not heard. If you're thinking, "Geez, we've not heard anything yet from Moana Pacifica," I think part of that is that is not read that is getting their media in place properly to make these announcements. Because I say at the moment we know that there have been signings happening. We do know some of the names that have been signed, but we can't say them yet, and we'll have to. So don't worry too much. So don't get too worried about Moana Pacifica. It is definitely on the way. Looking forward then to this coming weekend, we have had some announcements around the NPC fixtures. Because they've added some more now. This coming weekend, I am planning to be at for the NPC. Which one is? I'm looking at the wrong one now. No, the NPC is Bay of Plenty versus Taranaki on Sunday, the 26th of September. So this Sunday, I hope to be at that game. Followed by the following week, we've got 4 games currently. So Northland versus Waikato, Bay of Plenty versus Wellington, Manawatu versus Otago, and Tasman versus Southland. So hopefully on the Saturday, the 2nd of October, we'll be at Bay of Plenty versus Wellington. And then the week 6, it looks like I can't get to any games, boys. I'm a bit upset by this. So Wellington versus Canterbury, Hawke's Bay versus Tasman, Otago versus Taranaki, and Southland versus Manawatu. So all those ones are a little bit too far for me to travel to. So week 6, it looks like, folks, I won't be going unless somebody would like to step up and pay for my flights to somewhere. I'd love to get down to Otago versus Taranaki for the Forsyth Bar Stadium, if someone would like to fly me down there, or even down to Invercargill to watch Southland versus Manawatu. That'd be fantastic. In fact, I could catch them both, one on Saturday, one on Sunday. If someone, if there's someone out there who wants to sponsor me for that, for a little road trip around the South Island there, then please do get in touch. But good to see that we're getting these NPC games announced, but still a little bit concerning around Auckland counties and North Harbour. We've had no more news on that side of things, Stephen.
Yeah, not a lot. Apparently, according to the New Zealand Rugby Football Union, they haven't got up on basically on these 3 times. Apparently, the governing body is saying here, maybe looking. They've obviously confirmed those fixtures for rounds 5 and 6, which will basically feature many of the teams that you just mentioned. Now, according to the general manager of Community Rugby, Steve Lancaster, he'd hoped that Auckland teams would rejoin the competition no later than the 8th or October the 8th to avoid any major disruption. So, boy, who knows? Depending if the level of cases come down, who knows if they're dropping down to single digits, even though the government has pretty much said what's the date they've given us, the 2 weeks from the Tuesday gone. Anything might happen. Yeah.
I think particularly Auckland, as far as Auckland Rugby concerned, they're playing this very safe. Given what happened with the exemptions being pulled for those players and the paperwork being kind of shifted about, I don't think the unions can afford any further bad press. And I think NZRFU are onto it as well, because if you recall, the netball girls took a bit of flack, particularly after 4 of their players from Auckland were granted exemptions. So as far as union and Auckland concerned, I think they're playing this very, very safely. I am on the grapevine. I can say they're trying everything they can to put another case forward and see if they can send the team out of Auckland. But I can't see any of these things happening in the near future. And I think realistically, as Steve Lancaster said, no later than 8th of October. And if there is a delay, then I think there'll be a serious question mark of the participation, because we know the girls teams have been pulled from the comp anyway. So we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, I'm a bit surprised that Steve Lancaster is the person dealing with this as head of community rugby, because I would have thought NPC would come under high performance. So a bit surprised by that.
Furthermore to that, Paul, he's basically quoted as, however, with Auckland set for a fortnight at level 3, the best case scenario for them is safely return to the fold. Seems like about 15th of October at the earliest. So yeah, I suppose that's probably what the expectation is minimum. But on saying that, there'll be a lot of catch-up games inserted any rejigged draw if Auckland Counties, Manukau and North Harbour are re-entered into the competition.
Yeah, sorry, go on.
Another probability is, of course, this is worst-case scenario. They might not exactly be able to fit all these catch-up games. Might be a case of some of these teams going to have to share points. That is a very, very strong probability. They haven't come to that stage yet. But all this is actually dependent on, in principle, that particularly Auckland stay in level 3 for another 2 weeks and they drop down a level. If that doesn't happen, then this is going to seriously whack all the plans out of sync.
Yeah, a bit surprised that Chris Lendrum isn't involved, but as he's perhaps involved in the relationship with New Zealand Rugby Players Association, maybe he's has a lot on his plate at the moment with around that side of things. But a bit surprised I say that that Chris Lendrum isn't the person leading this, and that Steve Lancaster Steve Lancaster is. There we go. Surprise. So I'm not surprised it's the way New Zealand Rugby cleats he says the NPC. As they treat it like if it's a community rugby competition. That annoys me because it's a professional competition. Yeah. Anyway, it is what it is, and we'll see how that. And because look, community rugby, and one of the things you'll notice, and again, it's Stephen's going to call me a bit of a nerd on this one. But last year, if you follow the Farah Palmer Cup, they had squads of 22 players in the matchday squad, not 23, and that's changed this year. I.e., you would have one hooker and one prop on the bench previously, and then this year it's gone up to 23, so having the 2 props like we see in professional rugby. To me, that's kind of a good guidance as to if you've got 22 men in the matchday squad, you're probably talking about community rugby. Whereas if you've got 23, you're talking about professional rugby generally. Would be my kind of thing. I mean, Bo, do you have any kind of guide as to which competitions are supposed to use 23 or 22 men's squads?
I mean that is a good guide. My understanding is pretty much that all professional competition, all senior to elite level. So we got first class rugby, and NPC is actually classified as professional rugby. Although I have to say some of the squads are pretty much semi-professional because some of those guys they do actually have day jobs. So 23 is pretty much your standard run-on game day squad, but in some competitions, particularly grassroots and amateur competitions, senior level, it is 22. So yeah, that's generally how things roll. Yeah,
you look at there's a big difference. If you go and look at something like Southland's squad, you're looking through that one, you go, oh, there's about 2 or 3 Super Rugby players in it, and then you look at the game at the weekend between Hawke's Bay and Bay of Plenty, and Hawke's Bay are bringing Gareth Evans, a 1-cap All Black and Super Rugby player off the bench, and Bay of Plenty will also bring Super Rugby players off the bench. So some squads have got more Super Rugby players than others, and therefore more professional, as in full-time players than others. But it's there is definitely a difference, a variety of levels across the different provinces from that point of view. Stephen, you're grinning at that point.
I'm having I shouldn't chuckle about it, but it's quite interesting. We talk about this sort of professional level of the game. But boy, if you're in Heartland Rugby at the moment, COVID is not an issue. All those games it looks like they'll get through pretty much a full season in the Heartland division, and I think that's fantastic.
Well, yes, I mean, Thames Valley might miss a couple of players from North Hauraki, but that'd be about it, really. Probably.
I reckon they should rename it Festival Rugby as opposed to Heartland, because that's what it says. That certainly seems like it. But yeah, it's a wonderful thing, and all power to them, and long may it continue.
And so I did get invited to head over to for an away trip with Thames Valley to East Coast, but unfortunately I've got my girls this weekend, so I can't make that trip. But that would have been an interesting one. So yes, Heartland Championship is alive and well, as you say, having kicked off last weekend in that side of things. Just to wrap up then on the Farah Palmer Cup, to let you know, so as Boa alluded to earlier, that Auckland, North Harbour and Counties Manukau have all had to pull out of that competition. Auckland and Counties Manukau from the Premiership, and also what's the other? And then North Harbour as part of the Championship. And that means that the finals have been a little bit kind of messed up, unfortunately. Now, I thought they would just be, the next four teams would kind of just be allowed to be in the finals, but no, that in this kind of table, you still have to be in the top four, including those teams that have pulled that can't play the last two games. So that means for the Premiership, that Canterbury is going to finish top of that table. They take on Otago this weekend. Bay of Plenty will host Wellington. Now, if Wellington beat Bay of Plenty, they will go into the finals. If not, then there'll be no preliminary final, no semi-finals at all. The preliminary final would be Waikato versus Wellington if Wellington win this weekend, and that will be the weekend after next, the first weekend of October. Sorry, it's not. Is that the week? No, sorry. Yes, so it'll be a weekend. Yeah, the weekend after next. So the second, third weekend, I think, is the semi-finals, and then the final will be on the 9th, 10th. Down in the champion. So if Wellington win, I might be able to make it to the Waikato versus Wellington semi-final. We'll have to wait and see about that. On the championship side, Manawatu are going to finish top. Probably, actually no, there's one more round. And Northland, so Manawatu, Northland are in, as are Hawke's Bay. The exact order of that is yet to be decided on that one. Evening Nocturnal Rights, who's joined us in the live chat as well. And yes, that winger looks pretty damn exciting. For those of you who are joining us partway through, we talked about that winger as part of the first section of this show. So do go back and listen to that on that one. I've just realised I've not put my daughters to bed and turned the light off. They should be asleep by now. So I'm going to hand over to Stephen to see which way he wants to take the show for the next couple of minutes.
Thanks, Paul. Well, Paul's heading away on a bit of a break, Bo and I'll we'll have our own little conversation. But yeah, it's really quite sad for the women's game, isn't it, Bo? That it's basically resulted in this.
Yeah, look, really gutted, and particularly with the Auckland girls team. I mean, we're talking one of the top teams competition, so we are actually going to miss out on some, serious talent on show. And look, I did think about this whole scenario, and I can understand from a logistical point of view they've scratched those three teams, but eventually maybe at some point, once restrictions are lifted, maybe we could have some friendlies, so that at least these girls who've prepped and trained get an opportunity to have a bit of a run out, and maybe that might happen after all. And we just have to keep our eyes open. This is something I've actually put forward to Auckland Rugby. Look, whether they do it or not, and whether even if it's possible, I don't know. But I just feel so bad for these girls, because they've made a lot of sacrifices, and last moment for this sort of thing to happen is just absolutely gut wrenching.
Yeah, even for example, maybe maybe with the three unions that are based in this part of the world, put on a weekend tournament over 2 or 3 days. I know it's a bit of a tough ask, but if they can put really big squads together and just really mix it up a bit, so there isn't a high attrition rate, but it's at least something for these girls to end their season. And I see our host is back, Paul, from putting the girls to bed, so I'm going to hand the reins straight back to you, sir.
Thank you very much. One of the issues with that is that the Black Ferns will be taking out those sides and heading off overseas for their tour of England and France, with 2 games against England, 2 games with France. I can't remember exactly which order those games are in, but they have got those games coming up, which is great to see. For that point of view, and that has been one of the problems around the Farah Palmer Cup, is that they do have the Black Ferns playing in it, whereas the NPC doesn't have to worry about what the All Blacks are up to, because they very rarely play in it anyway. Having said that, there will be 2 All Blacks playing this weekend. We'll see Sam Whitelock heading down to Otago to play with Canterbury this weekend, and also Aaron Smith heading down to Tasman to play for Manawatu as well. So 2 All Blacks in the NPC. Now, it's a real shame that they can only have 100 fans, or 100 fans per section. So it won't be a big draw card for fans, but it might be a bit of a draw card for people to watch the games.
Paul, I was going to say,
that's absolute rubbish what I said. I was looking at the Farah Palmer Cup fixtures, not the NPC fixtures, to say where the players would be.
Yeah, I think Tasman will be hosting Waikato this Friday.
I was gonna say
Manawatu.
So Manawatu are hosting Northland. So Aaron Smith will be at home against Northland, and Sam Whitelock will be travelling with Canterbury down to Southland.
Yep, I was about to say, guys, if Aaron Smith was heading down to play for Tasman, I would definitely want to have a look at their wage subsidiary books if he was heading down that way.
I meant against Tasman. And also, and Dr. Much makes the point that Sharon Frizzell is still an All Black, and that he is also playing. That is very true. He is, yes.
Yeah, Nocturnal is always onto it. Nice to have him on the show. I think these 2 All Blacks playing, particularly Samuel Whitelock and Aaron Smith, will be a real draw card, and we might actually have some good TV ratings, particularly on those 2 games as well. So something to look forward to, gentlemen.
So 2 o'clock on Saturday, and followed by 4 o'clock on Saturday. Those 2 games. I unfortunately won't be able to watch those live because I'll be at Bay of Plenty, or hopefully at Bay of Plenty. I need to get permission for my daughters to come with me for that game against Farah Palmer Cup, but I don't know if they'll have enough spaces or not. We'll have to wait and see. But folks, I was the only media at Waikato on Friday night at the FMG Stadium, and I was the only media again down in Tauranga on Saturday for the Bay of Plenty Farah Palmer Cup game. So look, if you do want to support us getting around these and help promote these games, then please do head over to patreon.com/NZ Sport Radio and become a supporter of New Zealand Sport Radio. Moving on then, the Women's Rugby World Cup is going to be held in New Zealand next year, and it'll be a good opportunity for us to just to bring ourselves up to speed with who is and who isn't involved in that so far. Nocturnal Rights is 10 years since he's played for Canterbury. Wow, that's a Sam Whitelock. Wow, that's a big break between drinks.
Yep, folks. Sorry, Paul. I have to say, supporters on Patreon. Look, if you follow some of our tips on the NPC, and if you did take our tips last week, and I'm going to take my chance to gloat again, you would have had a very, very profitable weekend. And if you do, be nice, be kind. Here's your chance. You can donate at Patreon, because I have to say, Paul, look, it takes a lot of commitment to do what you're doing, as well as Mr. Harris over there. So to all our fans listening, do follow our tips. And as I said last weekend, we had a really, very, very profitable weekend of tipping. And if you do land the jackpot, just go on patreon.com/NZSportRadio and make sure you give us a donation.
Boa even picked the bloody draw at the weekend. That was shocking. So there we go. So as Women's Rugby World Cup, so the automatic qualifiers from the last Rugby World Cup are New Zealand, England, France, and the USA, Canada, Australia, and Wales. Already qualified from the South African, from the Africa pool is South Africa, and from the Oceania piece, with Fiji have also qualified for that as well. Looking at the what's happening, the reason we're talking about this is because this weekend the European qualifiers are happening, or the last weekends that have done, with Ireland, Italy, Scotland, and Spain, and they've had 2 rounds so far of their qualifying, with the 3rd round coming this weekend. And so far, every single team has played 2, won 1, lost 1, with 1 bonus point. So all 4 teams are on 5 points coming into this last round of games this weekend. Italy sit at top of the table with a point difference of +17, leading the way. They will face Spain, and Ireland are facing Scotland in those games. So we will find out one more team this weekend that will be heading over to New Zealand for the Women's Rugby World Cup next year, and we'll bring you up to speed next week as to who that is, and which team also goes into the repechage to join Samoa and Colombia, who are the 2 teams so far in the repechage. There'll be 1 more coming from the Asia Women's Championship between Japan, Hong Kong, and looks like Kazakhstan. So interesting one there for all of that side of things. And unsurprisingly, Simon has actually watched some of his matches. I must admit, I haven't actually seen any. But the level of rugby has been improved. But and Spain really should be in the Women's Six Nations. Totally agree. They have outplayed some of their opponents there. So to me, Spain are very unlucky to have been removed from Women's Six Nations. But I think we've talked about that before on that one. So, folks, the final thing then is the Rugby Championship at the weekend. We obviously did post-match reaction to the Wallabies versus the Springboks, and the All Blacks versus the Pumas kind of went pretty much as expected. A better showing this weekend by the Pumas, but still a comfortable win for the All Blacks. But Stephen, any other takeaways from the weekend before we look forward?
Yeah, I suppose something that we should really look at is really the tactics that the Australians used to basically unlock all the doors in the South African defence. Obviously, we all know they're huge on rush defence. They use that blitz defence very, very well. So it's a really full credit to Dave Rennie and Scott Johnson and the guy Scott other fella whose name's just gone out of my head at the minute, that who was with Eddie Jones. And just technically, I thought they were on point with the inside ball, moving the ball at times, and just running some really good ball carriers, just a little bit wider from the ruck. And we saw an example of that. Obviously, Taniela Tupou, the Tongan Thor, running just that little bit wider. All of a sudden he's running at smaller men, and he just runs with such devastating effect. So just a huge compliment to.
Oh, unfortunately, we've lost Stephen as his mobile data cuts out. But Bill, what were your takeaways from the weekend, and I guess comments about what Australia were doing?
Yeah, look, one key thing for me was the mismatches, which the Wallabies always managed to create, particularly when they put forwards out wide against the Springbok backs. And I think that was the most telling factor, because if you look at most of those one-on-one head-to-head matchups, there's every single time there was at least plus 10 post-contact meters. So that was, for me, a very, very telling statistic. And also, Samu Karevi coming back from sevens. I mean, I have to admit, I did not expect to see him play at that level of intensity, just like that at a drop of a hat. So that shows what a class player he is, and who can adapt from the sevens to 15. Because in the past, I've seen a lot of sevens players wanting to make the transition. They really struggle, because the two games are fundamentally quite different. So those two particular situations, and also I think for the Wallabies, just reward, because they were the team which looked like they actually wanted to play rugby. And from a spectator point of view, every bit of endeavor they showed ended up with some form of reward. And you have to applaud a side who put 4 tries past the reigning world champions.
I think the other player also, perhaps we've not, is I think Koroibete got himself much more involved in this game as well. And so there's one clip that's going around showing how during a yellow card he was packing down at blindside, and he makes it across the other side of the pitch to join a ruck, and basically and to drive the South Africans off the ball to get a penalty. So he's another player that got through a real chunk of work as well in this game.
Quite interestingly enough, Paul, when I saw that piece, I watched it a couple of times, and the reason I watched it a couple of times because I wanted to see what Mustard, who was packing on the same side of the scrum, what his role was in terms of getting to that next breakdown. Of course, great bit of play by Koroibete to get across the other side and then recognise and to show the strength that was a turnover opportunity. Now, I watched Mustard. Mustard pretty much went into the middle of the field to act as, I would imagine, probably a ball receiver if the ball came. But unfortunately, they just didn't have the South Africans just didn't have physical numbers at their breakdown. That was just an unbelievable bit of play, because, to be honest, I don't really know if that was in the script. I think that's something Koroibete pretty much played what was in front of him. Would you agree, Boa?
Yeah, no question. And I'm very happy for Koroibete, because he's had his fair share of critics, particularly here in New Zealand. Some a lot of people actually said, he probably doesn't deserve his spot. But, he's a class player, just like most of those players in that backline. And of course, there's no substitute for speed. And Tupou, when he made that break and did that no-look pass, he had the perfect player on his outside. And Koroibete, if you look at that play, that pass wasn't the greatest of passes, because Koroibete had to actually take it just past his hip behind him. But because he had the skills to kind of, regather the ball on the run without giving up or losing any speed or acceleration, he caught the ball with his fingertips, tucked it in, and then it was like the roadrunner trying to chase the coyote. It just came over. But yeah, look, fantastic work. And again, it's commitment. Really good players, when they're under the pump and when people question their very existence in the team, they come up with good performance. And he did all the talking on the field. All the numbers clearly stated that. And that interplay between Tupou and Koroibete, it was just like, Batman and Robin. Fantastic.
Yeah, I think one of the problems that Koroibete has is he is not a typical rugby union winger, right? He comes from league one of the things he likes to get involved in a lot is actually hanging around the back of rucks and taking pick and goes. And there are very few wingers who like to pick and go, but he likes to get involved in that part of things, and I'm guessing that's from his league days. So there and sort of being hovering around behind the tackle to take breaks where he can. So I think he doesn't fit the mold of what people think a world-class Union winger should be, and I think that probably brings him down in some people's eyes. But yeah, he's a very, very good player, and his skill set is, I think, pretty unique for a winger.
I was about to say that those two wingers have been a revelation. Even Callaway, if you recall, Callaway played for Counties Monaco in last year's Mitre 10 Cup, and I really didn't see a lot that suggested to me international winger at the time. And Koroibete, we always thought when he first came across from rugby league that you could just see he was struggling positionally. But those two, man, they've actually they've cemented their places in this particular side. If you think back to last year, I think Delgunu was one of the wingers for the Wallabies. He's pretty much disappeared for this time being. There was also Suliasi Vunivalu, who also came back from the Melbourne Storm and is probably a work in progress at this stage. So these two are making these wing positions their positions and holding on to it. It's just a shame they are going to lose Koroibete. It's a shame they can't get him out of his contract.
Well, look, they are reviewing or looking at changing the Ghetto law, so he may still be available to them from that point of view. Nocturne White says he looks a bit like Tulivelli. He used to be the Highlanders winger. I don't remember, but there we go.
I think Koroibete has a bit more speed on this gentleman he's talking about. And one thing I like about Marika is, he loves to chase things. He loves tackling a player, ball carrier, or going for the try line. One thing I do have to say, which is a negative about the Wallabies, is the most of the players have a very high tendency of going in quite high into tackle, and this is quite endemic of them, particularly to with Lockie Swinton, because you saw that sort of shoulder on shoulder, and it was there was head on head contact. And if you recall Marika Koroibete's red card, which is obviously scratched on appeal, these players tend to go that borderline shoulder level. Now, whilst it's not illegal, eventually you are going to see a nasty on-field collision, and the inevitable use of business cards from the referees, the yellow and the red card. And now the high tackle framework is pretty clear. Any direct contact to the head is a straight red card, whether there's mitigation or not. So guys like Koroibete, they like to go in high, and that's from that league background. And also Lockie Swinton, he's another candidate. So these are some of the little things I think they need to iron out of their game. And given that they've got a couple of games coming back to back with the Pumas, and history says one thing, the Pumas are a bit of a banana skin for this Wallaby. So all this good work, they can't undo by allowing these little errors creeping into the game, something which they need to be aware of. And I'm pretty sure Dave Rennie will be working on this.
So LB says Aussie players seem to have finally bought into their game plan. And with that comment there then about obviously the Pumas being a banana skin, Stephen, what kind of Wallabies lineup do you think we're going to see? Are we going to see pretty much the same team rolled out again, or do they need to rest some players after 3 tough games against the All Blacks and 2 against the Springboks?
Yeah, I do. Obviously, there's the obvious replacement, which is for Tom Banks. So they'll definitely have to make some changes. I'd have to have a look at their squad before I decided who was going to go there. But yeah, definitely I can see changes. Somebody like Jordan Pataya, Lolosio, I think you may have to bring him back just so he can sort of regain his confidence. He's your understudy. Hunter Paisami, Karivu's had a really, really big workload. So it's those guys that are fringe guys that have been coming off. I think you need to start them. I think somebody like our boy Pete Samu. I would give Pete Samu a start. He's just been outstanding off the bench. I mean, so I think Rocky Swinton at the moment is a little bit of an issue for this Wallaby team, Isaac Rodder. I think he comes back into the side. Yeah, I think they've got to make some changes. They've got to freshen these guys. No question, they'll be banged up after that test against the Springboks on the weekend.
Some comments of at fullback, James O'Connor for Tyre or Hodge at 15 is that's probably true. I'd be surprised if you bring James O'Connor back to 15 straight from injury. Personally, I think Hodge was the person on the bench, so I think he's kind of the semi kind of, if you call, in ownership of the jersey. So Bowie, are you expecting the Wallabies to split to change things up a little bit as Stephen said, or the same team again?
No question. I think they will, but I think they shouldn't. That my opinion is they shouldn't. They should pick their top side for this. If they try and do too much tinkering, and if they rest a number of players, which I think they will, and some of these players coming, they're going to kind of give up a lot of that exposed form and some of those combinations. So on that very note, I'm actually going to make a bit of a call here, a bit of a bold call for this. This Saturday, I am actually going to tip the Pumas to trip over a revamped, fresh-faced bunch of Wallabies. That's right, folks. Pumas to beat the Wallabies. It's going to be a big upset. I think the Pumas, this next couple of games is what they've been targeting through and through. And given that they've had their little run, hadn't had much luck, well beaten. This is an opportunity for them to make a statement. And as I said, historically, I'm a bit of a man who believes in statistical patterns. There's a reason why it happens. So there you go. For the Wallabies' sake, I hope they roll out the same side with a few changes, obviously. But if they do have significant tinkering, I want to rest players. They risk an upset loss.
Well, the Pumas currently are $3.10 with the TAB on that one, and yes, I'm not sure that I'll be putting any money there, but there we go. I'll be honest. Boa's had a better track record recently than I have. That's for certain.
That's why they got me the stats, but
talking about the Pumas, then what are we expecting? Pretty much the same side from them, or do you think they've been targeting this one? So have they held players back ready for this game?
Yeah, I think they'll put out their best 15. I think they'll bring Matera back to 6. Him playing number 8 was very, very ineffective. He won't be carrying as much from the kickoff. I think that's one area the All Blacks had really figured out and exploited. Every single time the ball went to him, he just got absolutely pancaked, flattened, and folded in half. So there will be a few changes, and I think you will see a much better kicking game from the Pumas. And that is what is going to kind of upset the rattle. Beg your pardon, it's going to rattle the apple cart a little bit. It's not going to be a overly exciting game where they'll be just going back and forth at each other. And it's going to be a very tactical game. Goal kicking will play a huge part in this game. And I'm expecting the Pumas to come home with a wet sail, purely on their goal kicking and just exerting pressure, particularly in the set pieces at line-out times, setting up a good, clean ruck recycle ball and putting pressure on the Wallabies, the center combinations. Because one thing the Springboks didn't do well enough was put pressure in that midfield area, and that's where it all unravels. So for me, that's what I'm looking forward to from the Pumas.
Now, the big game this weekend, obviously, is the 100th anniversary game between the Springboks and the All Blacks. This is the first game at 7 o'clock this weekend. Now, LB says Boks need to make changes, and I must admit, I do agree with him. The question is where, though. Number one for me is Mostert can't start at 6. Yeah, I think you need 3 proper loosies. Stephen kind of referenced that earlier, that playing that lock there at 6, I don't think is working. At 7 on the South African system, but 6 in everyone else's system isn't really kind of working. But Stephen and Boa, where else do you think the Boks need to change to freshen things up? Because they do look mentally and emotionally drained at the moment. Either of you?
Yeah, look, look, for me, one of the players who looks really out of sorts is Willie Leroux at the back. He looks like he's just seriously out of form. So that's an area where they have to look at, and also Faf de Klerk. I think it's just it's same old. very little or no imagination, lack of creativity. And also one of the biggest weak links, one of the biggest passengers in last week's game was Andre Pollard. I mean, there were times he was just tackling thin air. So, look, all these players who I've spoken about are world-class players, but for some strange reason, they just can't seem to think themselves out of a paper bag. And that's very concerning. Now, if the Boks keep doing the same thing, they will get the same result. Probably it's going to be, the pain is going to be a lot more inflicted upon them. As far as the All Blacks concerned, you know what to expect. And they've probably made it very clear on how they're going to play this game. They're going to play it at 100 mile an hour. So they will need to make some changes. But the one thing also I have to say is the Boks need to pick their fittest side. Last couple of games, it's what I call Uber rugby. They kind of walk from one place to another, and then their trainers come on for injuries. And this is something which really got under my skin, because there's 11 injury breaks, and the World Rugby rule is pretty simple. If there's a player who if you can't move the player, then that's it. You got to treat them. But most of the injuries, they weren't injuries. They were just going down just to slow the whole game. And this is something which is trying to really, annoy myself. And
it's something that all teams do to a greater or less degree. They're just doing it more than anyone else at the moment. I mean, the number of props who take a knee before a scrum, and you clearly see that they're not injured at all. They're just taking the knee to give all the other forwards a rest. And so, look, it's an unfortunate part of the game. And we do want the game sped up, and we want less of it. But they're not doing anything that other teams aren't also doing. But I say just to a greater degree. But you're right about the fitness side of things. LB, Mostert to lock, yep, agreed. Dupree at 8 and Van Staden at 7, with Vermeulen on the bench and Pollard to the bench with the Yankees, Elton Yankees, not Herschel, I'm assuming, at 10. Interesting changes there. I mean, Quagga Smith is one of those players who has got an engine and would give you pace and fitness off the bench into that side. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him. But they've had a problem trying to fit him and Khaleesi into the same back row. The balance just didn't seem to be right against the Lions. So we'll see if they do try that one again. But LB also thinks, that Delendi might also need a rest in this one. So we'll have to. We'll have to see as to what changes they'll make. But to me, it is they'll go 6-2 again, and it's about. I think they need to be playing 3 proper loosies the whole time on the pitch to keep up with this, because it is a. So otherwise, it is a very they do need to have a fittest team out there.
Paul,
Any comments before we go to the All Blacks team?
I was going to say, just on the Springboks, one player we shouldn't forget, if he is available, is Chesna Colby. If he can get on the paddock, you've got to get him on the paddock. Now the option could be to play him at fullback, but listen, I think he's better suited to the wing, because he's actually, for his size, he's so good under the high ball, and he chases high kicks really well. Although I actually thought the wingers, both the South African wingers, put a lot of pressure on the Australians under the high ball, but I think the All Blacks are better under the high ball. I think Damien DeLonge, to me, has been poor in both tests, and I would probably go for Jesse Creel to partner Lucanio in the midfield. I can also see, like LB said before, I can see some changes in the loose as well. Perhaps if Lou Delaga is not available, maybe Mostard into lock, or if he's not available, I think Lou Delaga will go back into that locking position. But I think they'll just maybe try and add a little bit more pace to that back three and the loose forwards.
Yeah, the latest news, I think, both on Colby and Ludiaga, is that they are both actually in doubt. Also keep in mind, was it Jasper Weiss, the replacement lock who came in right at the end? He's been cited for number 8, beg your pardon. He's been cited for that indiscretion on Samu Karevi, said, which, it was a red card, but it was given as a yellow. So there's that issue to deal with as well. So that will probably have some impact on the whole composition. But you're right. I think the single biggest loss in this Springbok outfit is Cheslin Colby. You know, in my view, one of the, or if not the greatest player of rugby union on the planet at the moment. So for the Boks' sake and for the sake of the game, I hope he's okay, patched up and ready to go.
I have to wait and see on Vice as to what his how the hearing goes. We've obviously seen other players have hearings like Geordie Barrett and get no ban at all. So let's wait and see on Vice. But I'd expect Vice to be playing if he isn't banned, to be honest with you. From an All Blacks point of view, clearly we are going to see the number one team. And I think from one of the things we're going to learn this weekend is who is Ian Foster's number one team, but also who is the next cabs off the rank. So, for example, do we see Va'ai or Tuipulotu as the replacement lock? Because obviously Retallick and Scott Barrett will start in the locks. What is his first choice order for the props and the replacements? Has Samasoni got ahead of Amua or not? I think so, but we'll have to. These are the kind of messages that we're going to learn this weekend, because this is the most important game for the All Blacks this year. Because it is the 100th anniversary against the Springboks, who are the benchmark that the All Blacks measure themselves against. Generally, there is France coming up at the end of the year, which will be another big game, but this is the game of the year for the All Blacks. So we will see the first choice team out there. On that note, it looks like Antelope Brown is still a doubt for this weekend, which means I think they will go with Havili and Rieko Ioane in that 12-13 combination. Boys, thoughts in that space?
Yep, no argument from me. That's where I was going. If Leonard Brown was available, he would be a 13. Rieko would be on the wing, but that's your centre pairing right there.
Yeah, I'm very happy with Havili and Rieko. I think more than capable, and I would argue probably the better choice.
Interesting. Because Rico's obviously taken a lot of flack about his distribution or lack of it again this weekend after that break. But yes, clearly that's something that everybody always focuses on when talking about him, because obviously he has played a lot of his rugby at wing, all of his senior rugby anyway. And I've forgotten who the other player was that was a doubt for this game. But there was one other. I've gone blank. So sorry about that, folks. I guess the other big question marks. I mean, obviously, the Lucy's I'm expecting. Papali'i is a doubt. And if he isn't available, then I would expect Ardi to be on the open side at 7. Kiri Ioane is going to be at 6. And then the question is, and then probably Luke Jacobson, I would have thought, at 8. If Papali'i is fit, then I think he will be at 7 and Ardi at 8.
I'm not totally convinced, Paul. I think if Papali'i isn't available, I think they'll leave Ardi at 8 just for the sake of combinations. I still think they'll obviously Akira Ioane, but I think Ethan Blackadder, we've already seen him operate in that number 7 jersey this year, and he's very, very physical, and boy, he had a top game on the weekend. I'm thinking there's your 7 right there, just because of his work rate and his physicality.
All the noise coming from the camp as well as the coaching staff has exactly been that, and you cannot dispute his work rate. And particularly against a side like the Springboks, you need someone who's a secure, old-fashioned ball carrier. By old-fashioned, I mean someone who can protect the ball and actually duck down and take that lead shoulder into contact. And right there is Ethan Blackadder, and for him, that is his single biggest, weapon of choice. So I'm firmly in your camp, Stephen Harris.
Okay, and I guess with Ardi being a 7, playing at 8, you can get away with it. The fact that he is a 6, he is not a 7. He's definitely not an open side, so you can get away with it because of that. LB says that Blackadder doesn't have a neck. Well, yeah, sorry about that. So yes, Blackadder clearly had some surgery there to fuse his head straight onto his shoulders. Not who's asked. Oh yeah, Nocturnal White says, has Samasoni got ahead of Taylor? No, absolutely not. No, Cody Taylor is first choice, definitely in that one. So, and then I guess the other one is then if we've got Rico at 13, who are your 11, 14, and 15? So I think a lot of people would have Reese on one wing, then Rico's going to be the other wing, but perhaps is it Reese, Jordan, and DMAC or Geordie?
For me, I'm going to go with Geordie Barrett, and the reason I go for Geordie Barrett, the South Africans are going to be sending a lot of high kicks his way. He's safe as houses under those high balls because of his $1.96 m, very tall man. But he also brings if you've noticed, he brings the ball back very physically as well, and always gets the ball back. I think DMAC's the sort of guy you enter into the game with maybe 20 odd minutes to go. To my way of thinking, your two reserves. I think you're pretty much looking at maybe, and once again this comes back to injuries. I think you're looking at Will Jordan, DMAC, and another halfback as your cover. The other great thing that you've actually got about Jordan.
Sorry. If you're putting Will Jordan on the bench, who are your two wingers?
No. I'm putting Will Jordan. I'm putting Rico Ioane's at centre now. That probably changes it up a bit. It probably opens it up for Will Jordan. That's based on obviously Rico playing in the midfield.
So the middle field is more high kicks from Geordie Barrett. I'm not sure about. Sorry, you're talking about crowd kicks. We'll ignore you there on that one. The All Blacks doing a 6-2 split? No, I don't think so. I think we'll see a 5-3 split. The only question mark, has DMAC climbed above Beauden Barrett with his performance at the weekend in that 10 jersey? That's another one. It was a cracking performance from him, but I think that that Beauden has got the money in the bank already invested that will keep him in that jersey, and DMAC will come off the bench.
Yeah, George Bridge and Bill Jordan for me, the wings, and Geordie Barrett at fullback. No question. The play for me, which really sealed Jordan Barrett.
Reece. Let's have a Reece.
Sorry, Will Jordan and George Bridge.
No Sever Reece. Wow, okay.
Well, someone's got to miss out, unfortunately. No question. Jordan Barrett at fullback. For the play for me, which clinched him, was he took a ball literally behind his head in the Pumas game. Reminded me of Lance Cairns taking a catch at deep mid wicket. That's how cool it looked.
And as far as I'm concerned, he's got the goal kicking. He's more accurate than his brother. Got a bigger beat, got a bigger boot. If you want to play the long kicking game or the 50-22 game, for me, he's got to be the 15.
Yeah, Beauden can't be kicking with his calf. If you got a calf issue, you can't be kicking. So he shouldn't be. Definitely shouldn't be taking kicks at sticks.
And also this game, we will have the All Blacks will have a lot of opportunities to kick at goal, and every single time they should take the shot when they have the opportunity. Pass the ball to Geordie, take the 3, because the way the All Blacks are rolling this thing forward, they're being very pragmatic about it. They are respecting possession and territory. So I expect to see every opportunity where they are given a crack at having points to be converted.
Well, I'm very surprised that Bo's gone with Bridge. So is Aaron in the live chat, because Bridge has been taking a lot of flack as being kind of not good enough and be down on form. So I would be very surprised if he is there. I think it's going to be Reece on that left wing. So some interesting selections, but I think one of the things that you can tell here is that when none of us are going, oh my word, we're scratching around to find someone to put that jersey on, right? And that's the big thing, is that we're happy with a couple of different names in there. I mean, one we haven't even talked about is the fact that Webber will start ahead of TJ, which a lot of people won't necessarily agree with, but I'm pretty sure that's how it's going to be. So whereas there are other teams you'll be going, well, okay, how are we going to fill that jersey? And that's, I guess, the only jersey that is there like that is that 7 jersey, the open side. Is that we don't have that. We don't have a stack of natural open sides in the squad. There's quite a lot of 6s and 8s, but there you go. Boa, thank you very much. Stephen, thank you very much. There you go, folks. We've got our preview of the Rugby Championship. Do join us at 5 p.m. every single day for the Lockdown Beers and Hash Rugby Chat. And we will be obviously looking at the squads as they do get announced now. On this one, LB says, I'll just be happy to see the Boks finally test our depth. Why take a massive squad and not use it? Well, yes, I think the plan had been to beat the Wallabies in the opening game and use it in the second game. But that all kind of went wrong, and they didn't have the and yeah, basically that changed their plans. I think it's probably what has happened with that one. But yeah, thank you, folks. Don't forget to join us 5 p.m. for the Lockdown Beers and Rugby Chat.